Brown Enough family, how are you? Happy Wednesday. Happy every day or any day you were listening to this. Today, I have the incredible privilege to share an amazing conversation that we had with Kati Fernandez. Kati Fernandez is an executive at ESPN over at 30 for 30. And in this conversation, we get into all things about execs being creatives or suits, about creatives being creative, about what it really means to dance, what it means to get something made, why we need to become check signers, not just check receivers.
I'm excited for the next wave of innovative ideas. And I want something that is so weird and so unexpected to happen that someone's like, I wish I would have come up with that.
So I'm excited for you to listen to this conversation. She drops mad gems over and over and over. Tons of love and enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. Let's get into it. First, how is the body feeling?
The body is feeling good, but tired. I think that I'm excited to try to close out this year in a spirit of gratitude and thankfulness, but also enter and receive the word rest. I think as brown and Black folks, we just don't see rest as an active evolution of resistance. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity there for us as well.
Right. There's your opener. Who am I speaking with?
I'm Kati Fernandez, proud Afro-Latina, born and raised in the Dominican Republic. Daytime job is leading development at ESPN. Full-time job is trying to be a positive contributor to this world in whatever capacity with the gifts that I've been given.
Be transparent. Do you love sports?
No, don't love sports. But although I've grown to love sports, this is a catch-22 question because sports has often been thought of as X's and O's, right? Really core, hardcore fans. And for me, it's been more of a communal language. So when I came to this country from the Dominican Republic, I couldn't speak English, but I could play sports. So I was in sports teams, and that allowed me to sort of blend in and participate and not be othered right away. And I just so happened to make a career in sports because of all the other things that I bring to the table, focus on story and people, not so much the sport and the score.
I do love sports, as you know, like
Knicks fan,
deeply.
what up?
Tell me why sports kind of always are the perfect metaphor for life. Sports hold such good storytelling, all those sports movies. And why is that? What does sports give us?
I mean, we're all playing a form of a game of life, right? And there's really amazing joys and ups and downs that comes with that. Sometimes you're asked to be the lead, and at other times you're asked to be the supporting team member. And it's so important, similar to sports, to understand what role and what season you need to play in your life, and understand that there's innings where you're sort of hitting home runs and there's others where you're punting, and that is your 100% and just as good as the home runs. So I don't know, I see sports everywhere in my life, and I see my life very much as seasonal, and some seasons are really amazing and some seasons are learning seasons.
I had a mentor who said sometimes it's the season of being a good father, sometimes it's the season of being a good writer, sometimes it's the season of being a good lover, sometimes it's a season of being a good friend, sometimes it's a season of neither. I often call sports the most important thing. I'm always fascinated how insanely riveted and wild and people can get rabid and excited and invested, and some people's day can be ruined for this wildly important unimportant thing. We lose a great athlete and we make murals and we dedicate things to these people. Do you think it is just that they are examples of what it means to sacrifice and to strive and to achieve, and is that what we're all trying to do in our own way?
I think all of us experience sports in some way or another, right? Most kids are either encouraged to join a sports team to learn social dynamics and how to be team players. So I think that creates natural and organic integration into our lives. I think that expands into admiration, because the reality is not all of us can be Olympic athlete, right? The amount of determination and hard work and perseverance and sacrifice. And sometimes when you look at it for sports like gymnastics, you're talking about 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds. I certainly didn't have that. I just wanted to read my book and mind my business and play video games at the time. So I think there comes a certain level of admiration and inspiration that you could draw from that. I think as we get older to adults, it's a space where we convene and socialize and integrate and experience community that way. And then at the, professional level, it's a unifier. And sports has been a theme and a way to get us out really hard moments in history. Not in sports moments, just in history. Think about New York City after 9/11. Think about Steve Spurrier starting his first season at University of Florida after the Gainesville Ripper came through and murdered 5 people over the course of 4 days at the start of their semester. When you think about those things, the kickoff of the game was sort of the turning of the page for this community to heal and start to process and not be defeated. Or even the hostage crisis in Iran and them listening to the Super Bowl and that being their glimmer of hope and goals to get out. I think sports is interweaving into all those things, whether we see it at the forefront or not.
You said something about you grew up wanting to read. You read an insane amount. How many books do you read a year?
Okay, so let me pull up my list. I have read this year.
Well, the year's almost over, so this is going to be a good check in.
No, but Chris, I still have so much more time. I feel like 2 weeks. Okay, I'm at 62 right now. And
62
I'm looking
books this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at a stack right here. So you're gonna laugh at me. So this is
Oh my gosh.
And I think I can get through that stack before the end of
how many are on that stack?
10 there. And I think I can do it. I think I can do it.
You can do 10 more books in 14 days.
Yes, I know I could do it.
So we're over 70 books for the year. How does an executive read that much? Do you have a special gift? Are you a photogenic memory, or is it about making the time? Also, why are books still important to you?
There's so much there. I love books. I remember I learned English by reading, which is ironic because you're like, how can you read if you don't know? It's just this idea of creating pictures in my head, right? So for me, it's a form of escapism. It's where my imagination gets unleashed and I get to create via somebody else. It's where I get to produce, whereas I don't produce anymore. It's a space where I get to nurture my creative mind and my sanity. And I create time and space for it because minimally every day I read for 15 minutes. Obviously, in order to read 63 books a year, you have to read more than that. But when I'm on planes or when I'm commuting, it's my base form of like self-care, honestly. It unlocks something.
Literature as a base form of self-care.
I mean, you wrote a book, right? And
I don't read 70 books a year. Yeah, I wrote a book.
Your book brought me to you. I have your book actually here.
Boom.
And your book was the first book I read this year or going into this year. I feel like books has a way of bringing you to things and to people that you don't even know you need.
You're an immigrant, you said.
Yep.
What is the journey? How do you become an exec at ESPN? How do you tell another young brown kid it's possible?
I came to this country when I was turning 8 years old. It was 3 months before 9/11. I got here, didn't really know what was happening, to be honest. A lot of people, I recently did a life map, which is a story for another day, but a life map essentially helps you track really high peaks in your life where you experience the most joy or real like success and like they sort of stick to your core memories, and really low lows, right? And sort of it tries to help you map out how you have all the tools you need to sort of get to wherever you want to go to just by having gone through those lived experiences. And in my life map, I actually put moving here as a high because I felt I was getting better access to education. I was getting more opportunity. I come from a town that has 20,000 people. Most of the jobs there are in agriculture. There used to be jobs up until 2005 in Puerto Plata in hospitality. Those were closing down, and they did close in 2005. So the opportunity was scarce, right? And I wanted to be a doctor, which is very immigrant-like, but I truly felt I was put on this earth to heal. And so
now you're a doctor of story.
Now I'm a doctor story. I came to this country, go to college, get into Holy Cross to study pre-med. They have a 92% acceptance rate to medical schools, and I was rolling. And junior year, I meet a mentor who's now my boss, and he sort of was the first person to be like, you have to gift in storytelling. And I said, does this gift pay, and where are those jobs? Because I've never seen them. And he really unlocked his network for me and social capital and had me do a couple of coffee chats. And those coffee chats led to my first opportunity at the NFL, where I started producing short form content, 2 to 7 minute features on NFL players that were meant to humanize their experience and tell interesting stories about their, backgrounds and lived experiences. And that turned into me doing films, which I loved. And I decided to pivot into more of an executive role because I really wanted a seat at the table and not just to execute the stories that were being told, but to influence the stories that would ultimately get told.
You gave me a crazy fact once about the amount of pitches that come across your desk, one in sheer volume, but that the diversity of these pitches is not very diverse. Are you allowed to share that?
I don't know, but I'm going to share with you. And then if anything, I'll ping you on the side and we can cut it out. So we get thousands of pitches. On average, we talk between 2,000 to 3,000 a year, which is everything from a film, a short, a narrative podcast, a series, limited or repeatable. And now we started to do a little bit of scripted. We toggled, our green light rate this year toggled between 0.9% and 1.6%. Pitching is like entrepreneurship, right? Like VC funding. It's an art of collecting no's, waiting for that yes, for that one yes that will eventually come, because they do come. But you have to constantly be doing it and not be dejected by it, and have the access and the opportunity to understand what buyers are buying, when they're buying, what they're looking for, all those things. And what I've noticed is that there is a significant drop off of Native American, Asian, and Latino stories and African American stories that are told and pitched by creators of those backgrounds. And I'm not sure why, because clearly everybody else knows how to access it, hence the number of 3,000 pitches. And so I've tried to make a concerted effort to be in the spaces where people from those backgrounds are, because I know that there's sports and fandom that touches them in different ways. And I want to help them unlock it, and my team wants to help them unlock it.
You said you don't know why, but if you had to guess why, what is the why?
I would say it's similar to my own background and experience, right? Like, am I a sports fan? Am I not a sports fan? Them prejudging their level of sports fandom before they even get a conversation or a room in the door is one reason I would probably attribute to it. 2, I would probably say lack of representation. A lot of buyers, you need an agent. You actually don't need an agent to pitch us, right? So that's not really widely spread or widely known. And so how do we disseminate that message and get it out to not just in the festivals and award circuit, but to creators wherever they are and wherever they're creating from? And 3, I would say they're not part of larger ecosystems that have the infrastructure. Development is expensive. Sometimes just creating a deck or a sizzle can be $25,000, right? Most creators don't have that funding and require that funding ahead of time. So how do we help them develop and flesh out their ideas further and create development steps or opportunities or programs that allow them to get those reps to be better positioned for the room, one, and then the yes, secondarily.
Outside of spending $25,000, there are a lot of creatives who listen to this show who pitch things in all sorts of rooms.
Yep.
What pitching advice do you have besides the couple of no's until you get a yes? What's some real tangible things?
Well, I have an entire chart for it, to be honest. So that's why when you saw me looking away, I was pulling it. I would say a couple things. The creative is king. It's the nucleus of everything that we do. So having a really clear idea of the narrative, the arc, the stakes, the tone, the themes, the hook, that's first and foremost, and your unique take on that story. There's so many ways, Chris, that I could tell the story of the Celtics versus how you would tell the story of the Celtics. Be really clear as to why your take and why your lift experience is the best one. Because in reality, when I describe this similar to entrepreneurship, yeah, investors invest in people's products, sure, but they're really investing in the founder. And in this experience, I see myself, I'm investing in the creator as much as I am investing in the creative. So I want to hear about the creators' really clear lift experience and take on this and why it's so important to them. And then, of course, the creative themes of that I just sort of explained. I think other areas that help them is don't take the same pitch and then share it to every streamer. Everybody's looking at things differently. So outside of the creative, the things that I look for is the business and the production piece of things. From a business perspective, for me at ESPN, being part of the Disney company, I'm looking at what are the synergies? Are there general entertainment tie-ins here? Here's the places where people discover our content. Is this content that they can discover there? Do we have league and partnerships with those teams? Olympic footage is really tough, especially because we don't stream the Olympics. And so being able to get a story like that over the finish line requires a creative and creator who is looking at the approach without leaning super heavily on those broadcasting rights and the footage that would be needed to license there. And then from a production standpoint, I kind of hinted at this. Why is this storyteller the right person to tell the story? What production team do they plan on forming? Do they have the access, right? First and foremost, do they have interesting archive or creative devices that they're utilizing that make this so undeniable that we absolutely have to?
I love all of it, but what I really love is, and I tell this to actors, I tell it to writers, 10 of us can, 100 of us, 1,000 of us can be in the same room. So it's the same temperature. We could be wearing the same clothes, drinking the same glass of water, but have 1,000 different experiences. And your ability to express your experience or your relationship to the water or the clothes or the room or the environment or the people next to you is really what makes something pop. So getting really intimate with your uniqueness and how you move through the world versus how someone else moves through the world, and know that that has value. Mm-hmm. I've been thinking about certain white people in this world who have the audacity to value a company at billions of dollars before it even sells the product.
Yep.
That's even bigger than the cliche, carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man. This is carry yourself with the confidence of a tech mogul who can say they are worth so much before they even sell the product. I wish I knew this sooner. I keep saying to myself the last 3 days, because we try and make things that are makeable, sellable, which is really just thinking down.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I mean, to that point, Chris, statistically, creator founders, utilizing your same analogy, founders of color tend to bootstrap to pressure test the idea before they desire to take somebody else's money and fundraise, versus a non-BIPOC founder will literally be like, hey, here's my idea on a stack, give me your money. And the venture capital is not like someone's going to be asking you to return that money to them.
I like this analogy for creativity. It's not even just white men. It's Elizabeth Holmes.
Well, that was just complete. The idea wasn't even ever feasible in this world.
And again, still though, you just say it. You just say it and you do it. And there's a fine line to this. Let's not get all egomaniac like Lex Luthor, destroy things. But I think there is something for young creatives or old creatives or creatives to know their worth and to claim their worth and to ask for it, to ask what they're deserving of. I have a motto that I love, which is, it is nice to receive fat checks, but nothing changes until the people who look like us are the ones signing them. And so you are a check signer. Do you feel a responsibility there? Do you enjoy that? How does someone become a check signer? Is there a path there? Is it luck? What would you say?
Well, I pitched this job, honestly, which is a little weird for me to say. So I don't actually know how most people stumble into development. For me, what I saw is the person who had this job before me left, and I felt my skill sets and unique lived experiences, which is what you were talking about, would complement the role, the business, and the future really well. And I put it on paper and pulled up to my mentor and my boss and HR and was like, I'm your girl. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you to see this. And at first they said no. And I was like, I'm not giving up. and here's the 14 business reasons why, and here are the 15 personal reasons why. And after
this was this right after they said no, or did you go home and think about it? Is this
no, I was like, I'm not letting you say no. I would actually like you to withdraw your no. I'm going to grab time in 3 weeks and we're going to have another conversation about it after you've had time to reflect and review my materials. And I'm going to do a follow-up of some of the areas that you raised while we were in the meeting.
Sick.
And after 15 weeks of back and forth, it was like, all right, fine. This is it. To your original question, if someone wants to be in development, I would say there's 2 ways to go about it. You could be in a development team on a production company that takes ideas out to a network, or you can join a network and that career trajectory is a role is open or you feel like there's opportunity. I'm big on before a job even becomes available, I want to be thought of and talked about and top of mind. So grabbing time with those development heads, making clear your intentionality, asking them for things that they could be doing to stay on their radars, and then understanding exactly what it is that you want to do, because not all development teams are the same. For example, my team develops across the board. Some teams only develop documentaries. Some teams only develop dramas and scripted content. Some teams only develop comedy. So if you want to go into a more particular and specialized genre, being clear about it or remaining open and going into a team that allows for you to discover that.
This is a resource. This is great. Okay, so there's this myth, maybe it's not a myth, that executives are not creative. And what would you say?
I'm going to call bullshit. And the reason why is because I think we all have it in us to create, and we all aid to creation to some degree, whether you're in a creative role or you're supporting creative. I think for me, where I create is spaces and experiences for people to get an opportunity. I think of myself as a thought partner as we dive deeper into acts or formatting or diving deeper into, the narrative when it's still sort of sitting in development, right? That is a creative banter that takes place between the network and the creator. And then on top of that, I am thinking on one of the things that I always think about, and I actually utilized it a bit to pitch me being in this job, is the Mona Lisa is worth a lot less when it's in my living room versus the museum. So when I think about creators and creatives, my job from inception is thinking about how do I protect the Mona Lisa and keep it in the museum while delivering it to households that should receive it and see it, but don't have access to go see the original.
That's a good one. You come up with that, or did you hear that somewhere?
People love the Mona Lisa as a creative piece. And I felt like I would hit right at their stomachs if I was like, I don't want the Mona Lisa to be in my house, because at that point I'm devaluing it, Wow. And I always think about that in terms of creative.
The Mona Lisa is a beautiful, everyone knows it. Even if you don't know it, you know it. Seen it at the Louvre?
I have not seen it. Is that horrible?
Oh, it's not horrible. It's just...
You're judging me though. I see the judgment in your face.
No. I thought you were saying, is it horrible? Like, is the Mona Lisa horrible?
No.
It definitely, though, when you see it in person, it is... anyone can fight me on this. I think it's wildly underwhelming.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
It's incredibly underwhelming, in my opinion.
But Chris, you're hinting at it right now. A lot of people don't even pick up the paint or the brush or the canvas because of fear of not being able to live up to it. And the reality is it will if you just tried. But if you don't try.
Oh, I mean, yeah, this is not... The underwhelming to me is 100 people in a room looking at it so far behind, you can't even get to
close.
It.
Yeah.
I cannot stand people who look at a Campbell's tomato soup can, a Warhol, or they look at a Pollock and they're like, it's just red. I can do that. But you didn't. You didn't do it. You didn't do shit. You did not do it.
I could not Lisa, but I would be under. It's like the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, don't judge me for saying this, it's just better to experience it in your house.
Well,
someone fight me on it.
I've had floor seats twice in my life to basketball games, and it really ruins... It's floor seats or television. Anything else doesn't really work. Yep. So if anyone listening wants to give me floor seats, I'll go with you. We can go together. I
Done.
would any team, Knicks or anyone else. I'm very happy too. What are you excited about?
That is such a good question. Well, I'm excited for what is this, a new quarter of a century starting?
I don't wait, what? I don't
How do you
know.
say that? 2025, the next 25 years, 2050.
Oh, we're going by quarters? Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
quarter. Yeah.
So I'm excited for a new quarter to start and for that to be a highlight reel. I'm excited for a couple things. I think I dweeb out when it comes to this stuff, but I'm excited about technology making creation more accessible, right? I think, like, for example, with some of the work I do with Hearst Labs, we just invested in a company called Mind Show that's helping streamline the cost of animations by a lot, right? That's
cool.
a really robust process. So I'm excited for more of those companies to land and create and provide more access and quantity. I think it's going to be great for creatives and also networks at the same time, or distributors. I'm excited for the next wave of innovative ideas. I think that people have gotten stuck into very thematic and formatted narratives across the board. And I want something that is so weird and so unexpected to happen that someone's like, I wish I would have came up with that.
It's because everybody's caught in the algorithm. They think they're free of the algorithm, but they are the algorithm, and then they're trying to make things that are likable, and then the spiral just continues, and you don't really have an original idea. But I know many of you do. Someone told me this recently, and I never thought of it. We are of a lucky select few who experienced a great change from a 1900s to a 2000s. And even if we were to have children today, they would not, and their children would not. To be of those people who saw that clock turn like that is pretty incredible. And so shout out to all of us who went from the 19s to the 2000s.
I mean, Chris, remember when you could not use your phone and the internet at the same time?
Yeah, but even these internet people won't make it to the 3000s. You know what I mean? Maybe one of those billionaires who thinks they'll live forever are working on it.
Will freeze himself.
I think come the 3000s, I think sooner than the 3000s, our phones or something like our phones are in a museum and people looking at them and going, they put that next to their face. Or when we all died off of some sort of poisoning and cancer, they're like, they put that in their pockets. That is what I think is going to happen at some point, which is not sad. Who knows what it is? It might be sad.
It's a little dark. You got a little dark there.
Yeah.
I just saw a movie about AI robots cleaning your house. And then, of course, the robot malfunctioned and then became obsessed with the owner. The typical
iRobot or something else?
Subservience.
Not original. Not original. I need something original. We just asked for original things, people.
No shade to the creator. It was just, I get this.
Why do you think so many bad things get made? I think this is why people call executives suits. Why are so many bad things being made?
Can I give you the on the record and off the record answer to this?
Make them both on the record so they can both play.
I think that people get things made that are bad because they tend to only listen to people that they share similar belief systems in. And in their minds, they're good. I also think that there is a dance that happens, one that can be measured and contextualized and one that cannot. And it's about creative instincts and sort of that thing that lives between your heart and your stomach that you can tap into that needs to be taken into evaluation. And I think at times ideas suffer from just being evaluated at face value and not opportunity because that secondary evaluation piece is missing. What do you think it's missing from the dance that I just described of creatives and creators and networks and distributors?
What is missing from the dance of creatives, networks, distributors? It's not a dance. It's not a dance. There's no listening. There's preconceived notions. There's being stuck in the old ideas. There's this obsession with IP. There's no risk. The most beautiful dance has an ability for someone to fall. It is willing to not get it right. I think continually of American Fiction and the screenwriter and the director who wrote it. And he said, do you know how many people said no to this? This is when it won an Academy Award. And he said, you could make 50 $1 million films, or you can make one $50 million film. You have way more chances of making something beautiful by giving more opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And, but we're afraid right now, and we're afraid in a lot of ways, not just creatively. I think we're afraid. Every institution is afraid financially. The government's afraid. Education is afraid. People are afraid. The climate's afraid. And so I don't think dancing is taking place. And so I think what would help is if it were actually a dance. And something I do talk about with another mentor of mine is white people forever, white creators forever have had the opportunity to fail and make something again. Bodies of culture only get one shot, and that's not fair. How the hell can you learn how to dance if you can never learn the move? If you got to get the move right the first time to stay in the dance.
Tell me more about how does one overcome fear to unlock creation?
Well, fear is not bad. Fear is not an enemy.
But the dark fear that you referenced earlier, the mobilizing fear.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. You have to have a different relationship to it. Fear, we have to keep walking. That's it. You just walk. You don't care so much about the destination. You just take the step, one step at a time. Fear is not, it's like pain. I was reading this thing about pain. Like people who don't experience pain, literally, like they have these tragic deaths because they didn't know the stove was hot. Pain in normal doses is really quite good for you. I think fear is the same way. I think fear shows you where your edges are. It shows you how we can reach past those edges, and that's where beautiful things are. So I don't think fear is our enemy per se. I think it's a thing. It's a friend to become intimate with.
Mm. Okay, I have two more for you, and now I've really turned the tables on you. I want to hear more about how and where true creatives exist, right? There's been a lot of changes in the festival space and award circuit. Where is that untapped creative space, and where can networks meet creatives in a more thoughtful way?
Well, we're part of the Hive. The Hive. We made an episode about the Hive, y'all. You can go back and listen to it. Just search the Hive. Brown enough. I think less is more. Right. 300 people in a room is not connecting. A correct amount of people in a room, smaller, more intimate, more specific, more chosen people in a room. We can have real conversations over dinner with a glass of wine in a park where everyone's not boasting. I do this. I'm going to do this. I'm better than you. Look at me. But we're having fun in another way besides just boasting and bragging. So I think it exists in more intimate, more intentional spaces. And sometimes we have to go create those. I was chatting with my friend. He's a novelist in Paris, and he has these Monday meetups with writers. And every Monday he's at the same bar. He's been doing this for 12 years. Every Monday he's at the same bar. Y'all can go see him. And he is there at 7 p.m. And he's like, if you want to have a beer, we have a beer. We can talk about writing. We don't have to, but you don't have to be alone. You can just come. And he's really intentional about making community. And I think that's the difference, community versus what can you do for me?
That's really impactful. Something that you said really touched me. That's not my last question, but it'd be amiss not to touch on it. I think for me in this role, it's really made me question, are you kind to me because that has something you want, or are you genuinely interested in having a conversation?
That must be on your mind all the time. That feels right. Y'all, I'm not, I think I'm great. I do. I think I'm worth $1 billion, even though I haven't sold a product. I think I'm that, but also it's amazing how you get on one TV show or you release one book. I get all these messages like, I'm that dude. I'm like, yo, I'm not that dude. I appreciate you thinking that. So I bet you get it all the time. There was this former artistic director at a theater company. She passed away. Wonderful woman. She had a wall on her. And I was like, why doesn't this woman like me? It was Diane Rodriguez. God rest her soul. I said, why doesn't
you dropped her? Savage mode.
No, because it's a beautiful story.
Okay.
I said, why doesn't this woman like me? I'm great. I'm cool. I'm chill. She's always kind of cold. And then I get a call one day randomly, young actor. I haven't really auditioned in Hollywood. I don't really have an agent. And I get a call from Judi Dench's assistant. And Judi Dench's assistant says, hey, we're casting for this movie. And Diane Rodriguez said you were great. And I was like, Diane said that? Really? And I did not get this film. I came to chatting with Diane and we got really close. And Diane said, I always have to know if people are just trying to get something from me or want to know me. But no, I'm always watching, she said. I'm always watching. I'm always looking out. I've always thought of that with sort of people in power. And when young actors ask me about ways to move ahead, the best way I say is try to genuinely talk to people, not what can you do for me, but who are you? Can we collaborate just as people? Can I make you feel a little bit better today about the world?
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I try not to let it get into my spirit, and I approach everything as you just want to hang out, but it's been a long year. So
yeah, I bet you're going to get it and you're going to move up in this life as you should. And I imagine it'll happen more and more. But I imagine you'll also see through the bullshit.
Every Latina grandmama has a special saying, and my grandma's like, when you meet people, just look them right in the eye and see if their smile hits their eyes. So nice. I tend to carry that one with me. And I also am a firm believer that when people show you who they are, you should believe them the first time. So we'll see.
Show you who you are, believe them the first time.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of grace, but there's a difference between character and mistake. And so, last question before we get all dark and gloom. What are you most excited for this next quarter of a century?
I want to think less. I'm excited to think less. I think too much.
Over analyzing and thinking and living in your head.
I just think too much. And so I'm excited to think less and trust this process more, trust my worth more, trust all of it more, and just think less. Life is much better when you're not thinking about it, but you're doing it. And I heard some beautiful quote, and some woman, she said, bro, I had a baby. I didn't even think about it. Like, you don't got to think about it. It just happens. Like, your body just does it. Life knows what to do. You know? And there's a distinction between listening and thinking. And so I'm excited to think less in this next quarter. Yeah.
Something that you just said is so impactful, because as an overthinker myself, there's times where, even if I look back and I was like, oh my God, look how happy I was. And I was like, girl, you were there. And I realized that even though I might have been present in the moment, I'm already living in the future because of racing thoughts and that endless self-talk that it can be so beneficial, but needs to be regulated as well. And I struggle with the regulation, but desire in similar ways to be more present, because sometimes when you're living in your thoughts, you're not living in your life and experiencing it to its full spectrum.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you are phenomenal. I love what you create.
You're phenomenal.
I hope other creators continue to create whatever that means. If it's the community that we reference, or the script, or the content, or the short, and say it to other people. Because I think sometimes if you just say something to the right person, it'll lead to the creation of that thing via the person or alongside the person. So I hope we all get to experience that in 2025.
Amen. Mike drop. Thank you so much. Hey, tell people anything you want them to know. You want them to follow you, see you, talk to you, anything you want to share.
My doors are always open. I do not need fancy decks. I do not need fancy pitches. Conversation is sufficient. You could follow me on LinkedIn. You could follow me on Instagram. It's just soy, like I am in Spanish, Kati Fernandez. My email is very simple. If you look me up, it's literally just my first name with a period in between my last name and the entity I work at. I'll let everybody else put that together, but pretty accessible. I tend to always answer, not always right away, but it's not going to be a month and you won't hear from me either. So if that's of comfort. Okay, we're going to end with a corny joke. Someone sent me this, and it's soy milk is actually regular milk, just trying to reach a new market. I almost spit out my teeth. Soy leche. Soy leche. Soy milk. Hola, soy milk. Okay. Adios. Adios. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed that. That was our chat with Kati Fernandez. And I will see you next week when we are back with a new episode. Tons of love. Peace.